Shalom, this is Levi Shore. Welcome back to Sweet and Good Torah. We have Rabbi Mordecai Darwish of the Gates of Mordecai. We got an explosive one for you today. We're learning the Ramchal, Das Tavuna, knowing God's plan. And we got a really exciting one today. The process of the revelation of God's oneness requires the temporary existence of evil. Why is there evil in the world? We're about to find out. Why did God create evil? We're about to find out. So the seichel, the intellect, or the rabbi, as is translated, he starts and explains. It's important for us to have a clear understanding of all the imperfections and evils that we find in the world, since they are not in accordance with God's infinite perfection, as we explained above. Since God is totally perfect, surely he should not have created a world that he should have created a world that was totally good. It is this problem that has caused sinful people to fall victim to the various evil beliefs that we mentioned above. Now, with God's help, I will help you understand all these things properly. When we say that God is one, we mean that there is no other God, that there is no power opposed to him, and that nothing can hinder his will, in contrast to the various false beliefs we mentioned above. If so, it is insufficient to find God's oneness through a positive description of what it is. Rather, we need to define it by negating anything that might contradict it. God's other attributes, though, cannot be defined at all by negating their opposites. Do you want an example, or you want to comment on that?
No, you give an example. You give an example.
And let me give you an example. So he says, for example, in order to define wisdom, we would not say it is not stupidity. Rather, we need to define it in positive terms, such as the mind being full of true understanding of things. In defining, like, Sidka, what's he said? Sidkus, Chasidus.
Righteousness.
He says Chasidus, like saintliness. It is
Yeah.
useful to speak of evil. It is useless to speak of evil. Rather, its definition is to be kind to all. That's Chasidus, to be kind to everybody.
Right.
However,
So these attributes, like you can't speak of its opposite or negate its opposite and get what it is.
right, you
It's
don't
not
really
so with
understand. Right, you don't really understand from the opposite. So,
right.
however, in defining his oneness, it is necessary to use negative terminology, that there is no other God. Thus, in order to define any of God's other attributes, we need to express them positively in terms of what these good qualities are, whereas the definition of his oneness is expressed by the negation of evil.
Right. That's why in Kabbalah times you say Ein Sof, like a negation of end. Right. So what the Ramchal is saying is that when you negate evil, which is the only quote unquote opposing force, then you reveal his oneness.
And we see it. I mean, we see it clearly. Like, it's so hard because there's evil in the world. That's how it leads people to doubt. Does God exist? Chas v'shalom. Because and that's why we see the mitzvah of we need to erase Amalek. When you have Nazis in the world, Yamak Shemam, or neo-Nazis in the world, when you see people doing evil, we have these evil terrorist attacks. Like, it takes away from God's oneness. It takes away from that.
Yeah, it's not just the evil, like actual evil, but like anything that that could be negation of it, like eating non-kosher food, right? That's evil. Now, you may not think it's evil, but it is, right? Speaking slander, right? That's evil. The evil is unbound by just like tragedies and massacres, right? It's a little bit more than that. It's a little bit more in depth.
Oh, right now it can just be like the little evil, just like speaking badly about someone, right? And
Right.
that takes away from this oneness. It takes away from the oneness of Hashem, of God. So from what I've said, you can see that had God wanted to reveal any other attributes of his perfection, there would have been no need to create evil. This is because they are all totally good attributes. It can only be defined by formulating their goodness. Since, however, God wanted to reveal his absolute oneness, which can only be defined by negating evil, it was necessary to create evil, and then to show that it has no independent existence or power whatsoever. Only in this way is every aspect of God's absolute oneness clearly revealed.
Right. Yeah. So God creates the evil to kind of give the impression of the other side. And then once he totally knocks it out, then he shows that there is only one power in existence. And that's really the whole point of history, is to show that there's only one power in existence.
Yeah.
Right.
But like to give like a simple example, like you have a little bully on the playground. You have this big kid, and he's not being very nice. And then he picks on this little kid, this little weak kid. And everyone knows when the bully's like picking on that little weak kid, it's not right. Like this is not right. It's not good. And then, some like let's say some champion stands up to the bully, and beats up the bully. And then people can feel that something good just happened, like protecting, this person that needed protection. Well,
Okay.
you can feel it. I mean, you can feel it when you see good triumph over evil. You can feel a change. Like you see the world how it's supposed to be. You see tzedek, see justice. Real justice, real mishpat. All right, so let's see how we're going. So, do not make the mistake of thinking that wisdom can only be understood by first showing what ignorance is, and chassidus, saintliness, can only be understood by showing what cruelty is, based on the premise that something can only be defined through its opposite. You must understand that all the perfect attributes can only be understood through descriptions of their actual perfection, the negation of their opposites, such as ignorance and cruelty, does not help us to define what they are. Rather, the negation of the opposite of all these perfect attributes only serves to define the attributes of God's absolute oneness. This is because God's oneness is defined by negating anything that contradicts it, i.e., example, anything evil and negative. Therefore, we can only understand all of God's other perfect attributes as subcategories of God's oneness. A person who wishes to gain a proper understanding of these matters must not confuse one category with another.
Yeah. Like you don't understand what good is in people, like good, like a nice, gentle person by wiping out all the cruel, evil people. Right. That doesn't show you what a good person is by wiping out the other side. But by wiping out any other power, you by definition reveal the oneness.
Yeah,
And if you wipe out all the stupid people, that doesn't show you what wisdom is, right? Like
yeah,
any other attribute in the world, you wipe out the other side, then the negation of it doesn't reveal what it is, except for the oneness of God. When you negate the other side of that, any other power, you nullify everything, then you reveal that there's only one true power sustaining everything.
yeah.
It's a deep concept. It's a very deep concept.
No, it's very deep. It's very interesting, right? It's very interesting. So we're going to go on. So now this is what the neshama, the soul says, or the student. So he says, what you say is very true. Understanding depends entirely on a proper classification of things. We must identify all the different general categories and then place each thing in the category it belongs. Only in this way can we understand the true nature of each thing and the effects it has, even though God's ways are totally different from our ways and beyond any such classification. We need to conceptualize things on our limited human level.
Yeah, everything is that we're talking about from our perspective, our level, right? You can't assume and start talking from his high and lofty level,
Mm.
right? Because he created the whole world for us to realize something. So we're just going to use, human terms and stuff that we can understand.
Yeah. No, but for sure. I mean, the existence of evil in the world, and then even worse, when people see that, like evil people, like they're successful, right, it takes away. It takes away from like the truth of like Hashem's
Because
absolute
because
unity and
because then
oneness.
you could think like, oh well, if I cheat people, then I'll prosper,
Yeah, constant
right?
shock.
And if I beat them up and take their property, then I can win,
Yeah,
and like you think you could do evil and enjoy yourself, right?
yeah,
And this extends beyond other things. They think I could speak slander about people, and then I can form alliances and do
yeah,
conspiracies against people and
yeah.
that kind of stuff.
No, and that's why tzedek and mishpat are so important. When people see that evil does not prosper, but yet it's punished, then you have justice. Then people say, ah, that person did something bad, they deserve to be punished, and then justice is restored to the world. It's like, if everyone was, if everyone's treating each other kindly, we'd be in the Garden of Eden, we'd be back in Gan Eden. But unfortunately, when people are doing bad in the world, right, there has to be, some kind of response to it. It can't stand. All right, so the rabbi goes on, he says, there's much more to it than what you have said. Let me explain. It is obviously true that God could have created the world using the full force of his infinite essence. Then we would not have been able to see any structured pattern of development or cause and effect within the creative process. Had he created the world in this way, we would be unable to say anything at all about his actions. It would be totally impossible for us to understand such a process, since anything done using the full force of his infinite essence is totally beyond the grasp of our limited and finite minds. However, God wanted us to be able to understand something about what he does and how he does it. In fact, he wants to put us to put effort into attaining this knowledge and to pursue it greatly. Therefore, he chose to create the world in such a way that his actions could be analyzed and understood by the human mind. The general principle here is that God wanted to limit his actions so that they would be according to the level of his creations and not according to his own exalted level. This gives us the ability to analyze his actions and understand at least something, if not a lot.
Yeah, so the world's created in 7 days. That's why, there's months, there's years, there's time frames, all that stuff, and the levels, development. A kid grows up; he's not just born ready, and the whole world is not just disappears on the scene, right? Had it been, it would have been God said, and it was. That's it, and the end, right? But that's not how it works, right? That's why it starts at the beginning, and it's 7 days of creation. There's Adam and Eve, there's a snake, and it's going on further, 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 right?
Yeah,
Otherwise, then we wouldn't be able to understand stuff. So we need to see steps. We need to see levels. That's the only way humans can grasp things.
yeah,
When they just like show up on the scene, then you can't really grasp, well, how did this happen? Because we're
yeah.
limited.
Now, I was learning something interesting over Shabbos. I was learning the Arizal, Rabbi Yitzhak Luria, his Sefer Eitz Hayim, the book, The Tree of Life. And he was saying, right, you're saying before, the Ein Sof, right? The Ein Sof is infinite. There's no limit. There's no boundaries. There's no nothing. So Hashem created, the 10. He brought everything into existence through the 10 sayings, the Esther Mamaros, and he created the 10 Sephiros. So that's going to be 10 aspects of how Hashem is interacting with us, but they're limited. They're only in a certain way. So, like for instance, like when Hashem acts through chesed, through love and kindness, like he'll bring a gentle spring rain and everything's beautiful and everything's growing, and we see the love and the kindness of how Hashem's interacting with us. Or if Hashem's acting through Gevurah, through like din, judgment, like Hashem can bring a huge hurricane on the world, and we see the damage and destruction, and Hashem's unfortunately is acting in that aspect of judgment, and we can see through these different ways that Hashem's like limiting himself into a finite role, and then we can understand it. Like that's what the Ramchal is saying. We can understand for each one of these actions, like what's happening. All right, so we'll go on. So the creation of the world is described in the book of Bereshit, of Genesis, proves what I've been saying. There, God tells us that he made the world step by step. I think you've read this before, through different divine utterances, right? Through
Few times.
the Esther Mamaros, the 10 sayings, according to the pattern he wanted. He did not create it in one instant and with one Mamaros, one utterance, although he certainly could have done so had he wanted to. As a result, we can identify the different categories of God's actions upon the world and put each action into its proper category and analyze its details. We are able to classify the reasons behind God's actions, and all the more so what they actually bring about. All this follows a pattern similar to what we find in the human realm.
Right. So, like we're not just humans. We have like different aspects of us, right? Like we have our brain, we have our heart, we have our liver, we have bones, we have sinews, we have skin, we have flesh, we have nails, we have all these things that
Here, let me
um
pause. Let me pause this for 1 moment. I'll be right back.
yeah,
Hold on. And we're back. Let me read the next part. Okay, so let us return to our topic. we've already explained that God's oneness is defined by negating anything that contradicts it. For example, anything evil and negative. Therefore, we have one common principle when we consider any of God's infinite attributes of perfection. Concerning each of these infinite attributes, we must always understand that only He has this perfect attribute and that there's no force that can oppose or hinder this attribute. All of this part of the definition of God's oneness, as I explained. So, 2 points follow from what we have said. A, as we explained above, in order to reveal any of God's attributes apart from His oneness, there would have been absolutely no need to create anything that was imperfect and evil. Only in order to reveal His perfect oneness and to clarify all its details clearly and properly did this become necessary. B, all the other attributes of God's perfection, His wisdom, His compassion, etc., are subcategories of the attribute of His perfect oneness. This attribute oversees all the other attributes, as we proved above. In every aspect of His infinite perfection, He is completely and utterly one. Only He has this perfection, and there's nothing that can oppose or hinder His perfection, as we explained. This reality is rooted in the fact that God must absolutely exist, i.e., example, it's impossible that He should not exist. That fact determines what we are able to express about His perfection and what we are unable to express. We can only express that His is the only imperative existence. Only He must absolutely exist and nothing else. This is clear to all those who have true emunah, true faith. You will see soon how much we will gain from what I've explained to you.
Yeah, everything else in existence needs an energy source, right? Our cars need gas, our homes need electricity, our bodies need food, water, right? Everything, we need oxygen. Everything in the world is dependent on something else in the world,
Yeah.
right? But only God's existence is imperative. It's not reliant on anything else. He is the energy source of everything. This is a great concept that everybody has to realize. I mean, all humanity will realize it in the end, but that's the central theme of all history, is realizing that there's only one true central power source of all of existence. There are no other gods. There are no split powers. There are no, anything else. Angels, higher forces, Satan himself, right? All these things, they are nothing in comparison to God. They're only there for illusion so we can understand the one true power source.
Yeah. No, it's right. It's like since Hashem is the one source of everything, He's keeping the existence. He's keeping all the universe in existence. So if Hashem wasn't there, there would be no universe. But a person, no matter how great, even like the greatest people in all of history, when they're nifter, when they die, the world goes on. The world can go on without even the greatest of human beings, but the universe can't exist without it, without God. Without God, there's no universe. It's only Him keeping it in existence every moment. All right, so then we'll go on. So it says now you can understand what I was really telling you before. The fundamental difference between the attribute of God's oneness and all His other perfect attributes, only the revelation of His oneness requires the existence of imperfection and evil, as well as perfection and good. This in turn creates the arena for serving God and receiving reward. Had God wanted to reveal any other attributes of His perfection, He would have created anything in a state of total perfection according to whatever particular aspects of perfection He desired to reveal. There would have been absolutely no need to create any element of imperfection whatsoever. This is because the revelation of any of God's attributes, apart from His oneness, in no way requires the existence of imperfection. As we have explained, without a world of imperfection, there would be no arena for man's task of serving God and no possibility for him to receive reward. Only when he chose to reveal the element of his perfect oneness did this require the existence of an imperfect world. This is because his oneness can only be revealed through the negation of imperfection.
Okay, this is a very deep concept, and if people can
Yeah,
grasp it, they can understand the whole
yeah,
purpose of being religious, quote unquote, is
yeah,
that it's not just, oh, do XYZ and you'll get rewarded, and if you don't do XYZ, you'll get punished, right? It's by doing XYZ, you are negating evil and promoting oneness in the world, that through your actions, through your thoughts, through your words, and all these things, and you're actually having an effect in reality, in a human consciousness in the world, of the revelation of the oneness. Like what we were commanded has a direct link into this process. And so we're not just doing any arbitrary things and getting rewarded for them. It's not like a person goes out and gets money for working, and it doesn't matter what they do, whether they're a teacher, a lawyer, a doctor, football player, right? It's the same money, right? But no, for here it's like everything you're commanded has something in reality that it's repairing, and so that's why God created the world with lack and imperfection. So to leave it up to the human to come and perfect his world by doing these commandments and revealing his greatness.
Yeah. No, it really clarifies where we are in history right now. Like it seems very, very confusing. We have this building momentum to this quote unquote this like new world order where they want this like world government of like atheism, basically. Like they want to deny God's existence. And when we see like the ultimate expression of like scientific technology, military capability, so we see the world, we see mankind at its most powerful, but yet we're going to see that all these forces that are standing against the revelation of the one infinite being's, revelation in the world, they can't stop it. Even with the most advanced, military technology, even with all their surveillance, things they're filtering through the media and the movies and the music, and Hashem's going to show that none of it can stop it. When Hashem wants to reveal, himself in the world, nothing will stop it. So it's like the ultimate expression of that that's going on, right? So it seems very confusing right now. Like why are all these bad, corrupt people? Why are they all
Well,
rising to the
it's
top? Why are they?
right. It's confusing to people
Yeah,
to the uninitiated, the people who
yeah,
don't know the
yeah,
God's plan, right? That's why I
yeah,
call the book
yeah,
"Knowing God's Plan,"
yeah.
right? Once you know the God's plan, you know exactly what's happening
No
and why He's
problem.
doing it. So you're not phased by it. You just keep on
Yeah,
trucking.
yeah,
You're like, oh, I got to keep doing the commandments. Got to keep doing the commandments.
right.
This is all part of the plan.
Right. So what we do is we do our job. We're learning Torah, we're doing the mitzvos, and we're doing gemilas chasadim. We're doing acts of kindness. Right. Every time we're nice to another person, every time we do a mitzvah in the world, every time we're learning Torah, all of them are like a light. It's called like, ner mitzvah Torah or. Each mitzvah is a little candle, a little light, and the Torah itself is a great light. And we're lighting more and more candles. And as we light more and more candles, the darkness of evil is starting to go, it will
More and
eventually
more
start to fade.
godliness is
Yeah,
revealed. More and
exactly.
more the
Right.
oneness of
Yeah,
is revealed. That's
yeah,
the plan, to reveal His oneness.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, can we break it down anymore, or should everyone just sit back and think about it? It's very deep. I mean, it's a very big concept. But when you
Yeah, if people
understand
don't if
it,
people
yeah,
don't understand this, then there's no point in going further, because you'll never understand what Judaism's trying to do, because you always have these people who are always they scrutinize the commandments, or they scrutinize God's actions, or they scrutinize people. They're always scrutinizing, right? Because they're viewing it without a plan in mind, right? They don't see the whole blueprint of creation and understand what God is trying to do, trying to manifest. And so like all their scrutiny is really futile. It's stupid. It's without knowledge. They think they're quick, right? They think they picked up on a mistake. They picked up on some kind of lack, and really like because they don't know the grand theme and the grand plan, like they make stupid statements. So anytime you hear a stupid statement, like a statement against God, against the Torah, against being religious and all that stuff, they're really unintelligent statements, viewing the any aspect of the Torah, any detail in a limited scope, and trying to use logic, which is faulty logic, to come to a conclusion. And so like anybody who poo-poos it is in the wrong, if they want to really sit down and speak about it intelligently. If they want to just like fight, they're gonna, oh yeah, who says you're right? Who says that?
right.
That's not intelligence.
Right. No. So when you know the plan, right? Evil wasn't created, so chas v'shalom, people would be evil. Evil's only created to be destroyed. Like it's only going to be temporary in the total
Right.
history of the world. Like right now, we've been doing thousands of years. It seems like right evil's like in a big uptick right now. But it's at its we're at the end. It's really about to be completely defeated forever. We're getting closer and closer to the evil's end. And it's really showing us it's the sparring partner. It's to motivate us. It's to get us to fight harder and better to ultimately defeat it. The purpose of evil is not that evil should rule, it's only to be defeated, and it's not going to be here forever.
Well, it's to be defeated by keeping the commandments
Yeah,
and revealing God's oneness, and that's how it's defeated,
right.
by the revelation of the oneness. It's not defeated by going out and doing marches and fighting and picking up arms and doing like all the crazy stuff that people, the physical uh, corporal things that people do nowadays because they think that's the only way. We
Yeah,
have a direct line, a direct uh, you know uh, connection with the source, and we just have to like tap into that source. Once you tap into that source, he does everything for you, and it manifests in the physical anyway. So there's no point in trying to manipulate the physical, what I mean, as what you see happening before your eyes.
yeah. No, and it's right. And defeating evil, it's simpler in some ways than people think. It's as simple as like just doing the mitzvah of saying the Shema, like in the morning, in the afternoon, like lighting the Shabbos candles, having, the kos of wine, doing the cup of wine for Kiddush on Shabbos.
Anything you do,
Right. So
you're saying
just be,
blessing,
just being
anything.
nice, just being nice to other people. And then a huge thing, tzedakah, giving charity to the poor, people that need help, giving someone help. All these mitzvahs, they like make the world a brighter place, and we get closer and closer to right the revelation of Hashem's oneness and the defeating of evil. You want to wrap it up? You got any
That's it. The greatest thing you could do is spread the knowledge, right? Because as GI Joe said, knowing is half the battle.
and
So
knowing is half the battle.
subscribe, like, and share, baby. That's the
All right,
only way
help
to
us
do it.
out. Get the message out there
Get the
because
message
guess
out.
what? When you know God's plan, life gets a lot easier. When you know the rule book, when you know the blueprint, everything gets a lot easier. All right, so
Exactly.
we hope to see you all back again soon on Sweet and Good Torah and the Gates of Mordecai. All the best.